Welcome, everyone. This is the Book Talk Nation event with Laurell K. Hamilton and Chloe Neal. This will work a little bit like an author event in a bookstore. Laurell will talk about her book, A Shiver of Light, and if you haven't purchased A Shiver of Light, you can do so at booktalknation.com or right here on this video page, and Laurell will sign and personalize it for you. Left Bank Books in St. Louis, Missouri will fulfill all of the orders and ship them to your door. The sales for these signed and personalized copies will close tomorrow night, so you'll want to make sure you get your order in by then. The books will ship in early June. You'll also notice that there's a little chat box under the video window. You can use that chat box to interact with Laurell during the video chat and enter your questions. In about 20 minutes, Laurell will answer the questions from that chat and also answer some of the questions that you submitted ahead of time when you RSVP'd for the event. Until then, I'm going to hand this over to our interviewer tonight, Chloe Neal. Chloe Neal is the New York Times and USA Today best-selling author of the Chicagoland Vampires and Dark Elite series. So welcome, Laurell and Chloe. And Chloe, I will turn it over to you.
Thanks very much, Dave. We'll see you in a little bit, Dave. Hello, everybody. I am absolutely thrilled to be here with Laurell K. Hamilton today, of whom I have been a fan for a very long time. I have followed Anita and Mary for many, many years, and of course, various and sundry men in the series who I enjoy as well. A Shiver of Light is the 9th Mary Gentry book, and it will be released on June 3rd. It's been nearly a 5-year wait for Mary from fans since the last book, Divine Misdemeanors, came out in 2009. Laurell, what can you tell us about the latest installment of Mary's adventures?
Oh, I'm so terrible at giving hints. I always give away too much. I will say this, we are seeing the babies, finally. The longest pregnancy in fiction is finally coming to an end, and since it's on the dust jacket, it's part of the blurb, and it's revealed in chapter 2, fertility deity, she's descended from 5 of them, and it ends up being not twins, but triplets.
Triplets! Another Mary Gentry baby.
Another one. And so 3 for 1 pregnancy. I'd be done. Yeah.
Is that kind of a 3 for the price of 1 deal? You fill any contractual baby requirements in one shot.
I think it should work that way. I don't know if it will for Mary.
You would think so.
I would think so.
It's unusual to have science fiction, fantasy, romance within any of those categories, to have a character who's pregnant and to kind of talk about pregnancy and that process. Really, in most romances particularly, and even in science fiction fantasy, you get the dating stage, you get the wooing and the seducing, maybe you get a little bit of the physical, but not really much of kind of what comes after. What was it like as a writer to write about pregnancy? That's just such an unusual thing in kind of contemporary literature.
You know, it's interesting because you're right. Everybody talks about the dating process, the seduction process. I mean, I'm not shy about putting the sex on paper, but this, you don't see people talk about the consequences in pregnancy. So how was it? I had to draw on my own experience in this area. I have 1 daughter. Thank God, not triplets. I don't know what they would have done. And I will just say this. I didn't like the process. I think it's totally unfair, and men get off way easy on this one.
I bet there's a good portion of the population that would agree with you right now.
No, all the friends I have that are men that have gone through labor with their wives and been in the room say, "Thank you for continuing the human race. If it was up to me, it would be dead." So talking about, I really had to look at it and say, it's magic. Would she have a perfect pregnancy even with triplets? That seemed disingenuous. I did research on how difficult it is to have multiples. So I actually addressed that at the beginning of the book, that she's tired of being pregnant. She wants to see her feet again. Because there comes a point when you can't see your feet anymore. It's like you can't walk well because you've got this thing in the way.
Or 3 giant things, I guess, kind of.
So it was very interesting. And also the other thing is, it's hard to be all sexy when you're hugely pregnant. You don't feel sexy at all. You just don't. And it was very interesting to start the book there with Mary and all the guys. They're all excited about the baby and they're waiting for it to be on this. But I really did miss the pre-baby, because it's much easier as all of us know who actually have children, it gets way more complicated after. And I actually got to address the fact that, well, yes, we have a lot of people helping us, but we're still tired. And we've still given birth to triplets. And it was a very romantic book, though, oddly enough, because we got to see the men interacting with her and their reaction to her having gone through it and given birth. And some of the men were wonderful fathers who I didn't think would be. It surprised me who really was going, I'm going to be a dad, and they just jumped in. And others that I thought were going to be better at it kind of were hands off. That was interesting.
That's another thing that's not explored very often. I mean, every once in a while you'll see a romance novel where maybe there's a kind of a pre-existing family, but the chance not only for moms to kind of experience or to be reminded what the pregnancy's like, but also to see what happens to men when they become fathers and kind of exploring that in a supernatural world is incredibly rare.
It is. But then I'm all about pushing boundaries, I suppose. And this is, I really enjoyed watching the characters that I had been writing for so long do brand new things and experience brand new things. And we get to hear a background of Reese in particular about the last time he'd been a father. And got a very poignant story from him that I didn't actually know. It wasn't in my notes. He just revealed it. And one of the things about the way I write is that I have my outline, but if my characters have a better idea, I'm willing to follow down the rabbit hole for a while. And often I find that they lead me places that are better than I had planned. The overall plot stays the same, but the character interaction grows richer. And
that was one of the issues I wanted to ask you about, was to what extent, maybe it's a percentage, maybe it's just a kind of a general sense, to what extent do you lead the characters versus the characters leading you? But it sounds like it's kind of a mutual process.
It is, especially if there's a heavy mystery plot. I have to know who done it. I have to have my clues. I have to have it out. And I know certain key events, like I knew the pregnancy was going to have to happen. I knew we were going to have the babies. I tried to avoid labor. I tried to just have, poof, babies. But Mary wouldn't let me. Mary started the book pregnant. Mary, we went through the whole thing. We get to see the fathers. We get to see who panicked. You know, a millennia of war and fighting, water breaks. Ha! It was great.
Yeah.
And then other people were steady and didn't panic. It was very interesting to see which was which.
Yeah, it's a unique opportunity to kind of dive into personality characteristics that you wouldn't otherwise get to see, it sounds like, for those characters. Yes, and their culture values children because they're so rare in a way that I think a lot of people don't understand. They take it a lot of people take it for granted. I have friends that wanted children and couldn't have them. I have friends that have chosen not to have children. And it was very interesting to me to explore it from a perspective of somebody who's from a culture where to be, if you can have children, that it's your duty to have children. Mm-hmm. It's not just a choice; it's a duty. Which is really interesting. Sorry, go ahead. No, it was just very interesting to realize what a different perspective her culture and her background gives her. Mm-hmm. She's American, middle, and then she'll hit something, and I'll go, oh, no, not typically American. That is very much the Fae culture, the she culture. Can you talk about how Mary has grown over the course of the series? Are there things within her personality that have surprised you as you've gotten to know her better? Oh, yeah. At the beginning of the series, she didn't fight me. She didn't argue on paper. She was so much more relaxing to work with than Anita. Which I think I've read that you thought Anita challenged you quite a bit. Oh, Anita's always has been up in my face for most of the series, no matter what I choose. No matter what I choose. And she and I are working better together now. But Mary decided either in Lick of Frost, she put her foot down. She started fighting back in a Lick of Frost, and strangely enough, I wasn't upset. I thought, okay,
she wants something bad enough to fight for it. And if a character wants something bad enough to fight for it, I know writers that will actually not let a character escape their plot.
Uh-huh.
I think that weakens, for me, it weakens the character because I
Sure.
betrayed them. It's like
So it's very personal.
Very.
Yeah.
I believe in free will for me. I guess I believe in free will for my characters. And certainly, I don't pick who the romantic people are going to be. Characters come on, they're created, and I often think somebody's going to be a villain, and they're not. They're the hero, or one of them. So I like the surprises. I write to be able to read the books myself as I write them.
Within Mary Gentry's world, and also within Anita Blake's world, there are, in addition to very strong heroines, kind of a cast of male characters who provide emotional support, physical support in lots of different ways. I'm gonna put you on the spot here. Within Mary's series, do you have a favorite of the kind of panoply of men who are aiming for her heart, if not throne?
I didn't think I did, but in preparation for writing this book after almost a 5-year hiatus, I went back and reread the books.
Uh-huh.
And even I'm going, oh, we had a favorite. The moment Dole steps on stage, he's a favorite. I mean, my subconscious was ahead of me.
Yeah.
And so, obviously, Dole was a front runner, and Frost wasn't a front runner when he first stepped on stage, but by the end of the first book, he is.
Yeah.
And it was very interesting to me that really, I don't really think that anybody else gave them a run for their money until maybe the middle part of the series when Sholto came on as strong as he did. Reese came on stronger. Galen, I love Galen. I really do. And I think in real life he would probably work better. But in Mary's world, he's such a political disaster.
Yeah.
That you always worry about him when he's on stage. He grows a great deal in this book. Being a father really makes him feel he has something to fight for too.
Good.
But apparently my subconscious picked really strongly early on, and it's been a battle for the other men to come forward and kind of push Dole or Frost out of the way, which I didn't know when I was writing it though.
Right. That's what's interesting is that you kind of came across this as a reader and not really as a writer. It's an interesting way to discover themes and things in the book.
Well, writing a book is like your life. Sometimes you can't really see the events clearly until after you've lived through them.
That's a fantastic metaphor. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Metaphors are my business.
Fair point. A very fair point. And as an apt metaphor, I'm going to have to think about that for a while. What are you working on right now? Now that Mary is kind of almost on shelves.
I am. I worked on some short pieces, and in fact, I surprised myself by finishing a short novel that was a surprise. What I'm working on currently, though, is the next Anita book, an Anita Blake book. Because if you guys are going to get to be able to read 1 and 2, 2015, I got to be writing it now.
Yes.
So, as usual, the girls are crossing. So I'm working on publicity for Mary, and strangely enough, some of the publicity, I went on Pinterest for the first time, and I started a Mary nursery picture thing on Pinterest, and I realized in the actual book I don't describe the nursery that clearly, that detailed. And looking at all the pictures has inspired me. I actually am making notes for a short Mary story, which will feature the babies. So some of the publicity has actually given me ideas for more short pieces with the babies and with some of the characters that didn't get on stage as much as I'd wanted. But currently working on Anita, and while I'm doing publicity for Mary and still making notes on Mary. So it's I'm getting better at crossing the streams or juggling, and it's not as jarring as it once was.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm also making notes on a brand new world, a brand new series.
Is there anything you're willing to tell us about that? Anything you're able to tell us about that? Contractually or otherwise?
No, it's not contractually, but my editor and my agent have both requested that they should know first.
I think that's a fair request. That's a reasonable. I'm not going to be happy with the answer, but it is a reasonable one.
And I haven't talked to them about this because it's not ready. I've reached that point where I try not to take it to New York until I think I'm ready to write it. Right now I'm world building, and there's a lot more world building to go. I will probably write at least one practice short story that will probably never get published to find the voice.
Sure.
Right now I'm world building. I don't have a main character yet. I'm wandering around, finding things and discovering things. Let's just say it would be very, very different from either anything I've written that you've seen from me. Pretty much so far.
You're a horrible tease. You are a horrible tease right now. Everybody in this chat is on the edge of their seat, waiting to hear more about this.
I've been told actually that I'm online. People tell me I'm a very good tease. But I maintain it's not teasing if I plan to come across.
Indeed, it's more of a hint of things to come. We'll say.
Yes, it's a preview. It's a preview. An irritatingly teasing preview.
True, also true. Can you tell us, since you're world building right now, what is that process like for you? I mean, just mechanically, are you taking notes? Are you doing internet research? Is Pinterest figuring in to what you're doing anymore? Are you using that kind of as a visual scrapbook yet?
I am very visually oriented. I collect pictures, so not on Pinterest, but for this world, I didn't have the internet to this degree when I was creating Mary and creating Anita. I wasn't comfortable on it. I'm much more tech savvy. So I've been collecting pictures off the internet and out of magazines and things, and so I'm very visual. I collect that first, and then scraps and bits of notes. So yes, I have whole files. I have just under 100 pages of notes right now about the world and the characters and the different ideas, and I went through every piece of paper in my office after I finished this last book with Mary. I found some of the Anita notes, the original notes. I found it before her last name was Blake. I found before I didn't know that Larry Kirkland was in the first book at one point in the draft. He's pushed to book 3. I didn't know. I had different names for people. I had different events. I remembered that there were no vampires originally. It was just zombies. So there were no vampires. Jean-Claude was a late comer. But I found some of my early notes, and what I did with Anita accidentally, and what I tried to skip with Mary and then had to go back and do, is that I write hundreds of pages that no one will ever see. I change voices, I change characters, I try out the world. I put on the suit of that person and walk around and say, does this work? And I don't know anybody else that wastes as many pages as I do world building. For Mary, I skipped it. I wrote the first draft and I sent it in. It was accepted. And then I read it over and I thought, this sucks. I actually took it back. Not asked to. I took it back. I destroyed 70% of the book, at least.
Oh my goodness.
And I rewrote it. And it is a better book. It is a much better book, a much deeper world. The first version to me read like Anita, just Anita with a different cast. And I thought, no, I've got to do better than this. Mary's got to be her own voice. And so I realize now that what I had done was about 700 pages of practice, which is about what I do. I looked at Anita, so between 200 and 600 pages of world building, of exploring different ways of character interaction before I come to my voice. And I can't skip it. Mary proved to me I can't skip this process.
Now, you will have to do it eventually, whether you turn it in first or not, in other words.
Yes. I've reached that scary point in my career where they'll publish it. They'll publish it anyway, so I have to be careful and police myself more stringently and go, does this really work? Is this the strongest I can put out? And I'm so happy I saved Mary from just sounding like I had phoned in my job. And the world building for me is just, I wander around the world. It's like I'm an adventurer. I've met at the tavern with my people, and we are going adventuring.
This has a very Warcraft sensibility to it.
And for me, it was old-time D&D. I played when it was just a little box, a little gray box.
When there were actual physical dice to throw around.
Yes. And I guess for me it is. You're wandering around the world and figuring out how it works. And I now know that's part of my process, so I don't fight it. And a lot of it is great writing, but it's not soup yet. And I may actually try a multiple viewpoint, which I have never done.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All various characters in first person?
No. I find if you're first person, your first person's limited. I don't like first persons from different characters. I know people do it, and they can make it work. It bugs me.
Yeah.
It throws me out of the story. So multiple viewpoints, I may try it. Right now, I say that because I've had characters that I like over here and characters I like over here, and I'm not sure I'm going to find one voice that'll do everything.
When you're writing this kind of mass of pages and thinking about the world and exploring it, keeping that in mind, how long does it take you on average to write a book? Is there an average for Mary or for Anita?
Oh, well, see, you changed your question. I was going to say between 4 months and 2 years. That's my two extremes. Anita writes faster than Mary, always has. And I think because her voice, her word choice is closer to mine. Mary's word choice is actually not as close to mine. So it's harder to write, doesn't write as quickly. So I'd say for Anita between 4 months if the muse is with me, which to 4 to 8 months for Anita. I've had some Anita books take a year, but that's the exception. Mary, on the other hand, that's more the rule. That she's more 8 months to a year and a half for a Mary book. And I've started crossing them. I've gotten to where I will write what's due in the morning, and then the evening I will, if I still want to go back, I can write on something else. And so I actually sometimes can start the next book that way.
Interesting. Well, Laurell, thank you very much for chatting with me today. I've enjoyed it immensely. We're going to switch back over to Dave, who is going to take some reader questions. So readers, now you've got an opportunity to quiz Laurell K. Hamilton on the things you'd like to talk about.
Well, thank you very much, Chloe. It was wonderful talking to you.
Thank you.
It's just like Chloe said, it's time for us to take a few reader and audience questions. So you can go ahead, just like you have been doing, and type your questions for Laurell in the chat box right down there underneath, and she will answer live. So let's go to. There have been a lot of questions in the first few minutes. So in the first 20 minutes. So let's go to some of the ones that have been posted already. Vanessa writes, Laurell, do you find it easier to write about Mary's goddess than Anita's faith?
No, I do not. For me, faith is faith. I started out as an Episcopalian. And when I started writing, and then I'm now Wiccan, but to me, your path of faith is your path of faith, and so no, I don't find it one harder than the other.
Next question comes from, let's see, Cynthia, and she says, I know you researched the Anita series for weapons and crimes, but where do you find your research on the Fae?
I actually have 3 shelves of research material. I stick as much as I can. Shoot, I should have anticipated this question because I would have had, I'm blanking on the author. When I start research something, I start with something that says encyclopedia or dictionary of. And hopefully by the time, before we get off air, I will remember the brilliant book I started with. And then I did archaeology and anthropology as much on the Celts as possible, and stayed with people also that were folklorists back in the day in the 1700s and 1800s, which would go out and interview people who actually said they saw real fae, the fairies and elves, who really believed. I try to stick as close as possible to people who actually said they'd seen them and had eyewitness accounts, so that and archaeology and anthropology, rather than, I didn't use anybody's fiction, though I have to admit probably the seed was planted years ago by Emma Bull's story, War for the Oaks, which if you can, it's a wonderful book about the Seelie and the Unseelie courts.
Our next question comes from Bethany. The question is, will the rest of Mary's lovers get their own courts?
I don't know. That's the honest truth. I don't know. It was a surprise to me that Rhys got his own Sithim.
Now, someone wrote in the chat that a lot of publishers are saying that the vampire and werewolf genre is over, or those genres are over. What do you have to say about that?
Guilty Pleasures, the first Anita Blake book, got rejected over 200 times.
Wow.
Everybody loved it, got the best rejection letters. They would even recommend other editors to send it to. And one of the horror editors, publishing houses, rejected it with these words. And this is in the late 80s, late 1980s. The vampire genre is dead. It cannot support a single new book. And because a new vampire book came out from some other writer, they actually used that as a reason to reject the first Anita Blake novel. So everybody can keep telling me that the genre is dead. They've been telling me that before I sold the first book. And now I'm working on book number 23. And my sales and my audience say that it's not fading.
Audrey Brown writes, will Frost come as a guide to the babies?
I think perhaps she is one book behind, or 2 books behind.
Oh, okay.
I don't want to spoil it for her because it's a big reveal. So I think you maybe you need to read Swallowing Darkness, and that will help answer that question.
Gotcha. Do you have a plan for the future of this series? Will it be open-ended like Anita, where you will continue to write as long as you have ideas, or do you have a definite end in mind?
I had a definite end in mind, and to be honest, probably book 7, Swallowing Darkness, was the end of that story arc. But I'm very stubborn, and it was, one, I was contracted for more, but 2, it's a beautiful world. I love the world, and I love the characters, and I'd written them so many years that I just couldn't imagine not writing them again. So I wrote, the 8th book, Divine Misdemeanors, which was more solidly a mystery, and I thought, well, I'm done, maybe I'm done, and then I wasn't done. Started making notes. Mary started talking to me again, and I realized that we had to have the babies on stage. So as long as the characters talk to me and have a story to tell, then I'll keep writing. But I have vowed to myself I will not be one of those writers that goes to the well when the characters aren't talking to me. Just because people want more books is not good enough. The characters have to want to have their story told.
Question that just actually popped up is a little different. It's not as story-oriented, but it says, do you ever have time to read for fun? I'm sure you do, but what do you read when you read for fun?
I don't have a lot of time to read for fun. Most writers don't. Most people who go into a business because they're in love with, say, movies, they make movies, they don't have time to watch as many movies. The same thing happens to writers. Well, what do I read for fun when I'm not reading for research? I read mysteries mostly. Cozy mysteries is something, because anything too close to my genre is, like hard-boiled mysteries or anything in horror is too close to a busman's holiday. Right now I'm reading The Dirty Life by, I can't think of anybody's author name. The Dirty Life, it's not fiction. It's about a woman who was a writer in New York who meets this guy who wants to do an organic farm and has this great idea, and she leaves it all, very green acres, and except she's a beautiful writer. And that's really what it is for me. It's not for fun. The writing's got to be beautiful or well done, or the characters have to be good enough, because I read like an editor now, sadly. It's really hard for me to suspend my disbelief if the writing's not really dead on. And in some ways, it's lost me my ability to read for fun.
Will we see any new insights into the Sealy court in this book?
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry, what do you want me to say? Yes, and I will give away something if I say almost anything. Yes, we will see more insights into both courts, actually. And let's... No, I can't say it. I'll give away something.
Give it away.
Spoiler!
No spoilers! No spoilers!
A lot of people are asking about Nightseer. Have you given any thought to continuing Nightseer?
Ironically, Nightseer was with a different publisher, and then that publisher was folded into and bought by Penguin Putnam. And now, of course, Penguin Putnam is now, and Random House have joined. And Random House was where Mary was originally, then I went to one publisher, and now everybody that I've ever worked for is under one umbrella as a publisher. So they would be happy if I wanted to do a sequel to Nightseer. But originally, years ago, when it was first published, I wrote the sequel to Nightseer, and my editor at the time didn't want it. The first book had not sold well enough, and he said it lacked a certain je ne sais quoi, which is French for nothing. I mean, it means that certain something. So, and people say, well, now publish it. Well, it's what I said earlier when I was talking to Chloe. It was well written for me at the time. It is not up to my standards now. Nightseer was a happy accident. I didn't know how to write a book. I stumbled to the end of that book. It was blessed by the muses that the book reads really well. It reads well, but it took me 2 to 3 books in between Nightseer and the next one I would publish to really realize how the trick worked, how you wrote a book and how you made it work. Nightseer, I really was a gift from the muses, and I learned on the job after that.
Here's an interesting question that just popped up. Samantha writes, do you ever find that your daily life changes, for example, mood, music, dreams, attitude, when writing either Mary or Anita books?
If I'm writing an Anita book, my temper's shorter. I tend to start talking in Anita-isms. I've always said, I hope to God I'm never mugged while I'm writing an Anita book, because I'm going to smart off. I so am. And yes, maybe I'm armed, but I'm not as well trained. And I really don't want to have to have my mouth write checks the rest of me doesn't want to, cash. Mary, I begin to notice things, and I'll start to, I don't know how to say it other than the fact that I start forgetting that butterflies are really just butterflies and not fairies. And I start seeing more magic around me. I start populating the world more. So yes, they do. But here's the thing for me that affects my life more is if it's a really sad scene, if it's really emotionally trying in the book, I will be sad and depressed in real life. If I'm having a fight on paper with one of the men, if one of the characters is fighting with one of the men, I have realized years ago I had to be careful not to pick a fight with my husband. And he'll go, did Mary or Anita, did they have a fight with somebody today? And I went, yes. And he says, I thought so. Oh, I'm sorry. And I learned years ago that it can affect my mood, so I have to be careful in that. But if I don't write enough, I start having nightmares. If I don't write enough pages, if I don't produce enough, it's like a safety valve for me. I start getting very uncomfortable. I become haunted. I haunt myself. My imagination begins to haunt me. And if I'm writing, I don't have nightmares. That noise in the middle of the night, I will fearlessly go through my house in the dark. Nothing's there. But if I haven't written enough, I'll spook myself, actually.
And on the Mary and Anita track here, are Mary and Anita ever going to cross paths in a story, even if it's a subtle cross?
No. They're both first-person narratives. How would I write that? I walked into the room. I was already there. I mean, I don't know how to write that. I did have an interesting experience when I first started writing Mary, like the second book of Mary, I think. Jean-Claude interfered, came to my head very, very loud while I was writing, and he says, "You had this and you did not offer me any." Because at that time, Anita wasn't having sex with him. There was some, or was still fighting whether she was going to or whether she wasn't, or it was just where she'd gone away for a while and she was giving him all sorts of grief. And he says, "Here's somebody who's cooperative. You don't offer me any." You know, he was just like, "Really?" So it was the weirdest moment of apologizing to my imaginary guy and going, "I'm sorry. I didn't know," you know? So that was an interesting moment to have. That was the biggest crossover. Anita and Mary don't talk about or to each other, but some of the men will go back and forth and editorialize one for the other.
How does it feel, the Charles writes, how does it feel to have played such a big role in creating the modern paranormal romance genre?
Well, thank you. It feels pretty good. I've had several editors tell me that my success breeds more success because my book sold and they wanted books like mine. At one point, I had people telling me they were asking for Hamilton-esque books, and I said I was too young to be an esque. And then of course, this was back in the late 80s is when I sold the book. It came out in 92 or 93. So then Twilight hit first, rather before Charlene Harris with True Blood on HBO. But and then Twilight came out, and they were like wanting books like Twilight, and then they were wanting books like True Blood, and so many. It opened up in a new field that had not existed. And I have actually had several editors tell me that the success of this genre saved publishing. There was a time when all the book sales seemed to be going down, even romance was beginning to dip, and then this just infused new life into it in general and got more people reading. And once you get them reading one series, they want to read others. Once they read in one genre, they'll read outside of it too. You just success creates more success for everybody, makes a bigger pie.
And thank you for that, by the way.
You are very welcome. Very welcome.
Now, I know you don't want to give away any secrets, but we have time for a few more questions. And one of them was that the rumor mill says that there's a big death in this book. Are there any clues or anything you want to say, or if you want to comment on that?
No, I will not comment.
You got to buy the book, right?
You got to buy the book, but more than that, it's. I'm still not over writing it. I broke my heart on this one, and I actually did a blog about the fact. So I let it out. I was the one who started the rumor because I wrote about the aftermath, and I don't drink. I drank after this. I actually, it was hard cider. It's not like hard liquor, but for me, I don't drink. So I actually needed a stiff drink, and I wanted cake, and I reacted as if a love affair had ended. I had all that reaction to it, and so I started the rumor. So there you go. But I can't say anything more because I am really terrible at hinting. I could barely manage Santa Claus with my daughter. Trust me, I can't hint. But this was very emotional, and it was very difficult, and I have to wonder if I'd never lost anybody in real life, if I'd be able to write the scenes to the depth that I do. I don't know.
Well, let's transfer with the last two questions to something a little lighter. How did you come up with the baby names?
Oh God, I collect baby name books. I bought my first baby name book when I was 14 because I wanted to name characters. And I didn't think about it. I bought it, went to the bookstore to pay for it. I'm up the counter, and the clerk does that, look down, look up. And I realized she thought I was pregnant. But I have 3 or 4 Celtic baby name books, and 2 of them have the translations and pronunciation guide for the names. And so I made lists and lists and lists and lists of names until I finally came to the names at the end. And I changed one name at the last chapter. I went back and had to change all of it because I couldn't spell it. I have dyslexia, and I really do. I have dyslexia, and I can't spell, but I couldn't spell this name. Gaelic is hard to spell. Welsh is hard. Welsh is hard to spell. Gaelic in general is hard to spell for me. And I finally realized I couldn't keep the name because I could not spell it consistently. I had to change the baby's name because I could not spell it. I could pronounce it, I couldn't spell it. But I made lists of names. You'd have thought I was really picking my baby's name. I took it that seriously because I hope to write about these babies in the future.
Right. I have time for one more question, and that question is, it's more general, but do you have any advice for budding new writers trying to get into this genre or any genre? What can you say to them just starting out?
Writers, write. Write. Write, damn you, write. Don't talk about it. Don't read about it. You can read about it. You can talk about it. But if all you do is talk about it, all you do is read about how to write, and you don't write, you want to have written. You don't want to write. And you know what? It's okay to just want to have written and just want to talk about it. But if you really want to write, put your butt in a chair and write. That's how you get better at it. Ray Bradbury said that everybody has like 100,000 bad words in you, just not good writing. And the sooner you sit down, the sooner you write through the crap and get to the goal that only you can write. And I took that very much to heart as a young writer. And it's okay to be rejected. How's that? It's okay to be rejected. It's okay to not have your first story sell. It's okay. Please try to sell it before you self-publish it on the internet. There, I said it. It's a perfectly legitimate business strategy, and it's changing all the time, but I talked to so many writers that they were rejected twice, 5 times tops, and they were so crushed by it that they didn't try to sell it after that. And I get it. I finally put out one story, is self-published, because I wanted to give it as a gift to fans for a brief time. That's called Shutdown. And it was great. I wrote it. I contacted an editor, and it was out there being read within 24 to 48 hours. It was brilliant. I loved it. But I think that I would like to see some of the people I'm reading are really great, and I would like to see them try traditional publishing a little harder before they do the self-publishing, just to see, because I think the genre's change, the whole industry's changing, and I would like to see a middle road between the old school and the new school, and some of these people are really, really good. 5 rejections is nothing. Guilty Pleasures was rejected over 200 times. If I felt like they had internet publishing, you couldn't publish like that then. It didn't exist. So I would have given up. Don't give up. Love your characters. Remember, your characters are like family. If your child was rejected at school, would you put them in a drawer and never want to look at them again? Would you cast them before strangers? No. You would love them and you would try again. You would help them work through their issues. Treat your stories like your family. And value yourself as a writer. And keep trying. Rejection doesn't, they just reject paper or files on the internet now. They're not rejecting you. You're still brilliant. Your story, your voice, whatever that is special to you. As a new writer, put your butt in a chair and find your voice. Because I want to read more stories. And that means you guys have to write them, because I can't write all the damn time. So write. Put your butt in a chair, write. Finish everything you write, send it out, and try to actually make people pay you for what you write. If you were a plumber, you wouldn't do some of these pipes for free. You are a good enough writer. You deserve to be paid. And so that's the biggest thing. I would love to see more people making a living. There's some really good writers out there that just keep giving their stuff away, and I don't know how the economics work, but I know that some of them could have gone a more traditional route, but the rejection, they didn't want to go through all the rejection. So it's okay. Write. Let me see your stories. No, don't send my stories. Don't. My agent will not let me look at them. I am not allowed to look at stories that are even, especially close to my genre. But write. Just write. Write stories only you can tell. It's okay to start out imitating, but you will eventually find your voice if you just write enough. And believe in yourself no matter what. Rejection, believe in yourself. That's the biggest thing. Write, finish what you write, try to make a living at it. Don't give yourself away unless you've tried every other avenue that'll pay you. And then write some more. That's how you do it. And I hope you make it, because we need more good stories.
Well, thank you. That was very inspirational. It was a perfect way, I think, to end the event, and that brings us to the end of the event tonight. But before I let everyone go, I want to remind them that the books are for sale. You can purchase a signed and personalized copy of A Shiver of Light right here on this page. Those sales will close tomorrow night, so make sure to get your order in by then, and Laurel will sign and personalize the copy for you, and then Left Bank Books will ship it right to your door. We'd like to give a big thank you to Left Bank Books for hosting this event, and thank you to everyone who joined us tonight and submitted questions. There were a lot of them. Sorry we couldn't get to every single one, but we got to as many as we could. Laurel and Chloe, it was such a pleasure to have you join us tonight on Book Talk Nation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
It was great to be here.
Thank you. Take care, everybody. Thanks for joining.